The alien scouts descended from their sleek spacecraft, their confidence evident. They were sent as an advanced unit tasked with evaluating Earth's defenses ahead of a planned invasion. To them, Earth was merely a minor backwater planet, a place that wouldn't pose any real challenge to their technologically superior civilization. The air was thick with humidity as they landed amidst a vast, dense forest. Towering trees and thick vegetation greeted them as they stepped out, the environment seeming more like a primitive jungle than a battlefield. Their mission was simple: assess, report, and prepare for the main fleet's arrival. The alien scouts, equipped with advanced energy shields, plasma rifles, and high-tech armor, were unfazed by the thick vegetation or the lack of any visible threat. They exchanged confident, almost dismissive glances at the sight of the tree-dwelling structures hidden above them. These primitive wooden constructions, suspended by ropes, seemed laughable to their advanced minds. They noted the simplicity of the architecture, the way humans had seemingly relied on basic tools to build their homes high in the trees. To the scouts, this was a sign of a species far behind in technological development, primitive, weak, and ripe for subjugation. The alien commander, standing tall in his gleaming armor, couldn't help but sneer at the simplicity before him. "This is what we were sent to evaluate," he mocked, gesturing toward the treetops, "a species that hides in trees and builds with sticks." His fellow scouts chuckled in agreement, their voices filled with arrogance. They activated their scanners, expecting to find rudimentary defenses at best. To them, Earth was nothing more than an easy conquest waiting to happen. The dense forests and the treetop dwellings were nothing more than an inconvenience, something to mock rather than fear. Confident in their superiority, the scouts decided to split into smaller groups, believing they could cover more ground and gather more intelligence before reporting back to their commanders. With their energy shields activated and weapons at the ready, they ventured deeper into the forest, still exchanging jokes and laughter at the humans' expense. They felt untouchable, believing that nothing on this primitive planet could pose a threat to their advanced technology and weaponry. Their arrogance was their downfall. As they moved deeper into the forest, their advanced scanners picked up no signs of danger. The alien scouts walked through the thick underbrush with ease, confident in their ability to handle any challenge. They heard nothing but the distant sounds of animals, the rustling of leaves, and the wind blowing through the towering trees. To them, the forest was nothing more than a vast, empty landscape. Their focus remained on gathering data, but the calm surroundings only fueled their mockery. "Look at these dwellings," one of the scouts said, gesturing toward another set of treetop structures barely visible through the foliage. "They can't even build proper defenses on the ground. These humans really think living in trees will save them." The others laughed in response, their confidence unwavering. They believed their mission was nothing more than a formality, a routine scouting expedition where they could easily assess the weakness of the humans before reporting back to their fleet. They saw no reason to worry, no signs of a real threat. In their arrogance, the scouts failed to notice the subtle signs of human activity around them. They missed the quiet movements in the trees above, the slight shifts in the underbrush, and the fleeting shadows that darted through the canopy. So focused were they on their own superiority that they ignored the telltale signs of danger. Their advanced technology, which had never failed them before, was of little use in this environment. They couldn't detect what was hiding in the shadows just beyond their reach. Meanwhile, the humans were watching. From the moment the alien scouts had landed, the humans had been silently observing their every move. These were not ordinary humans. They were elite survivalists, warriors who had lived in perfect harmony with the forest for generations. They knew every inch of the land, every tree, every rock, every hidden path. The forest was their home, and they had perfected the art of silent warfare within its depths. Their tactics weren't reliant on advanced technology or flashy weaponry. Instead, they had honed their skills to become one with their environment, using the natural world as both their shield and their weapon. Hidden high in the treetops, the humans had watched the alien scouts mock their homes and underestimate their capabilities. The aliens' confidence amused them. They had seen invaders like these before, creatures from other worlds who thought themselves superior, only to fall victim to the humans' carefully laid traps. These scouts, with all their technological arrogance, were about to learn that Earth was far more dangerous than they could have imagined. As the scouts moved deeper into the forest, they were unknowingly walking into human territory. The tree dwellers had spent years preparing for moments like this. Their ancestors had taught them how to use the forest to their advantage, setting traps that blended seamlessly with the natural surroundings. Their silent movements, hidden by the dense foliage, went unnoticed by the alien scouts, whose eyes and scanners were too focused on technology to detect the human presence. The humans waited patiently, knowing that the time to strike would come soon enough. They communicated through subtle hand signals and quiet movements, their eyes never leaving the alien invaders. The forest had long protected them, and now it would serve as the perfect battleground. The scouts, so sure of their superiority, were walking directly into a trap. The humans, masters of silent ambush, were preparing to show these invaders the true strength of Earth's defenders. The alien scouts continued to move deeper into the forest, their confidence unshaken. To them, this was nothing more than a routine mission. They had no idea that they were being hunted, that the humans they had mocked were preparing to turn the forest into a weapon against them. What had once seemed like an easy conquest would soon become a nightmare from which the alien scouts would not escape. The humans were ready, the forest was ready, and the aliens had no idea what was coming. The alien scouts, still brimming with arrogance, pressed deeper into the forest, their laughter fading into the thick underbrush. They moved in small groups, confidently scanning their surroundings, unaware that they were walking into a deadly trap. The forest seemed calm, serene even, but the silence masked a hidden danger. One group of scouts pushed into a large clearing, seemingly untouched by human presence. As they stepped forward, the ground beneath them suddenly gave way. In a split second, what appeared to be solid earth collapsed, revealing a concealed pit lined with sharpened stakes. Several of the aliens fell into the trap, their armor proving useless against the brutal spikes. Their lifeless bodies were impaled instantly, shocking the survivors. For the first time, the aliens felt a pang of confusion. This wasn't the work of some primitive species. The pit had been expertly concealed, blending seamlessly into the forest floor. The scouts, for all their advanced technology, had detected nothing before it was too late. As they rushed to pull their fallen comrades from the pit, their disorientation grew. They had come to Earth expecting to deal with a backward civilization, but now they were losing troops without ever seeing their enemy. Before they could fully regroup, the first silent strike came. Arrows, fashioned from wood but tipped with razor-sharp stone, cut through the air without warning. A series of thudding sounds filled the clearing as more alien scouts fell to the ground, struck down by unseen attackers. Knives followed, thrown with deadly precision from the treetops, further decimating the alien force. The surviving aliens scrambled to react, their superior weapons suddenly useless. They couldn't see their attackers. There were no energy signatures, no detectable movement, just death from the shadows. Panic began to take hold of the alien scouts. They had trained for countless battles, but nothing had prepared them for this. Their advanced technology, the very thing they had mocked the humans for lacking, was now failing them. Their plasma rifles fired wildly into the trees, lighting up the forest with brief flashes of energy, but they hit nothing. The humans were ghosts, slipping in and out of the foliage, striking only when the aliens least expected it. As the plasma blast tore through the forest, the humans had already vanished, leaving no trace of their presence behind. The aliens, now unsure of their surroundings, tried to retreat from the clearing, but their path was blocked. Snares, hidden in the underbrush, snapped up several scouts, trapping them by their ankles and hoisting them into the air. These traps were simple, crude even, but their effectiveness was undeniable. The remaining aliens looked around, their fear now palpable. The forest, which had seemed like a harmless, primitive environment, was turning against them. Each step they took felt like a risk, every sound a potential threat. Their advanced scanners, which had been so reliable on other worlds, were useless here. The thick canopy of trees disrupted their signals, and the dense foliage blocked their sensors. Worse still, the natural materials of the humans' clothing rendered them invisible to the aliens' heat detectors and energy scanners. It was as though the humans had been born of the forest itself, blending in so perfectly that even the most sophisticated technology couldn't pick them up. The energy shields that protected the aliens from plasma fire and high-velocity projectiles did nothing to stop the silent arrows and blades that rained down from the treetops. With every passing moment, more aliens fell, their numbers dwindling rapidly. The once confident scouts, who had mocked the humans' tactics just hours ago, were now beginning to realize the full scope of their mistake. The humans had mastered the art of using their environment to their advantage. The forest, which the aliens had viewed as nothing more than an obstacle, was now their greatest enemy. Each tree, each bush, each patch of underbrush could be hiding a deadly trap. The aliens, disoriented and terrified, had no way to anticipate the next strike. Their superior technology meant nothing in the face of the humans' intimate knowledge of the land. The humans had turned the forest into a living weapon. Logs, carefully balanced and rigged with tripwires, crashed down from above, crushing the alien scouts who ventured too close. Concealed pits, lined with more sharp stakes, dotted the area, waiting to claim the next group of unsuspecting invaders. The aliens' attempts to move through the forest were met with failure at every turn. For every step forward, there was another ambush waiting, another trap ready to spring. The humans, using the natural sounds of the forest, the rustling leaves, the calls of animals, masked their movements perfectly. The aliens, already confused and on edge, couldn't tell whether the noises they heard were part of the forest or signs of another attack. With every ambush, the alien scouts grew more desperate. Their advanced armor and weapons, which had served them so well in other battles, were of little use here. The humans were faster, more agile, and impossible to track. The once pristine forest now felt like a labyrinth of death, and the aliens were being hunted. They could no longer rely on their technology to save them. For all their mocking laughter and confidence, the scouts were now facing a grim reality. They were outmatched, not by superior technology, but by an enemy who understood the terrain far better than they ever could. As the hours passed, the forest seemed to close in around them. The alien scouts, once eager to explore and gather data, now moved cautiously, every sound sending a shiver of fear down their spines. They had lost all sense of control. Their tactics, designed for open battlefields and technological warfare, were useless against the humans' guerrilla-style ambushes. They had entered the forest as invaders, but now they were nothing more than prey. The humans, invisible and deadly, continued to strike without warning. Each attack was precise and coordinated, a testament to their mastery of the environment. The aliens, who had once believed themselves to be the pinnacle of military power, were now little more than targets, slowly being picked off by an enemy they couldn't see or understand. The arrogance they had carried with them into the forest had disappeared, replaced by the stark realization that they were losing, a realization that came too late to save them. The first ambush was only the beginning. The humans had shown the aliens a glimpse of their capabilities, and now the scouts knew that their situation was far more dangerous than they had ever anticipated. The forest, which they had once mocked, had become their tomb. The remaining alien scouts, now greatly diminished in number, attempted to regroup. Their once proud and confident ranks had been reduced to a small, panicked handful. The terrain, which had at first seemed so harmless, now felt like a labyrinth of danger. Every sound set them on edge, and their scanners were useless in detecting the humans lurking in the shadows. The scouts huddled together, forming a defensive perimeter around a small clearing, hoping that if they could consolidate their forces, they might be able to push back. Plasma rifles were aimed in all directions, and energy shields flickered into place as they desperately awaited the next move. The plan, as conceived, was to hold their position and strike back at the humans as soon as they revealed themselves. But as the minutes ticked by, their confidence began to wane. These were not traditional battlefields. This was a hostile environment where nothing was predictable, and their technology offered no advantage. The forest was vast, and their enemies had mastered it completely. The humans knew every tree, every hiding place, every strategic spot to strike from. Even as the aliens tightened their perimeter, they knew that the humans could still strike with impunity. Their strategy, which relied on superior firepower and technology, was falling apart in the face of an enemy that refused to fight on their terms. Communications with their commanders aboard the ship had become unreliable, but the remaining scouts managed to send out a garbled distress signal. The commanders, having received fragmented reports of unseen enemies and unexpected casualties, began to panic. Their initial confidence in the superiority of their forces had crumbled as they tried to piece together what was happening on the ground. How could their advanced technology be failing them so completely? How could a species they had mocked as primitive now be systematically dismantling their forces? In a desperate bid to regain control, the commanders sent reinforcements from the ship, believing that sheer numbers would turn the tide in their favor. Their thinking was simple: if they could overwhelm the humans with a larger force, they could regain control of the situation. But they had underestimated their opponents once again. The humans had been watching, anticipating every move the aliens made. They had already set traps for the incoming reinforcements. As soon as the new wave of scouts touched down in the forest, they found themselves caught in the same cycle of ambushes and disorientation that had plagued the first group. Traps were sprung, snares activated, and more aliens fell victim to the humans' precise and deadly tactics. The humans had shifted their strategy to psychological warfare. Not content with merely eliminating the alien scouts, they began to employ tactics that would break their morale entirely. They left false trails, drawing the scouts deeper into the forest, only to disappear again before a single shot could be fired. Decoys, constructed to look like human figures, were placed strategically, luring the aliens into traps. Eerie, unnatural sounds echoed through the trees at night, making it impossible for the scouts to sleep or feel safe. The relentless pressure was taking its toll. The aliens, once so sure of their dominance, were now rattled and on edge. The forest itself seemed to come alive with malice. The trees creaked ominously in the wind, and shadows moved in ways the aliens couldn't quite explain. Every rustle of leaves became a potential threat, every flicker of movement a possible ambush. The scouts, already worn down by the constant attacks, began to see humans where there were none. They fired blindly into the trees, hoping to hit something, anything, that might end the nightmare. But the humans remained elusive, striking only when they chose to, never when the aliens expected it. The forest had become a mental and physical prison for the alien scouts. Their numbers continued to dwindle. The humans were patient, picking off the scouts one by one with expert precision. The aliens' plasma rifles and energy shields, designed for large-scale battles and advanced technological warfare, were proving useless against the humans' guerrilla tactics. The forest was too dense for long-range weapons to be effective, and their shields offered no protection against the simple but lethal traps that had been laid all around them. Every attempt to move forward was met with another ambush, another fatal mistake. The aliens, now utterly disoriented, realized they were being systematically hunted. Panic had fully set in. The remaining alien scouts were no longer strategizing or planning a counterattack. They were simply trying to survive. Their once advanced tactics had failed them, and now they were being reduced to nothing more than prey, desperately seeking an escape from the forest that had become their tomb. The weight of their initial arrogance, the laughter and confidence they had shared upon landing, now hung heavily in the air. Their technology, which they had so heavily relied on, had betrayed them in this foreign environment. The casualties mounted. Scouts fell into more concealed pits, were caught in more snares, and were struck down by unseen arrows from the treetops. Each death further demoralized the survivors, who were now too terrified to venture far from their defensive positions. But even standing still didn't guarantee safety. The humans were always watching, always waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The aliens had no way of predicting when or where the next attack would come, and that unpredictability was destroying their will to fight. The advanced armor that had once protected them from energy-based weapons was proving to be a hindrance in the forest. It slowed them down, making it impossible to move through the dense underbrush with any real agility. Their advanced communication devices were jammed, and their scanners, designed for detecting advanced weaponry, could not pick up the humans' simple but effective traps. Every advantage they thought they had was stripped away, leaving them vulnerable and terrified. The forest, which had seemed so benign and primitive at first, had now become their greatest enemy. The humans, whom they had mocked as backward and inferior, were systematically defeating them through superior knowledge of the terrain and expertly executed tactics. The alien scouts were out of time, out of options, and running out of hope. They had been sent to conquer Earth, but now they were fighting for their very survival. The humans, meanwhile, showed no signs of stopping.
They were relentless, precise, and completely in control of the battlefield. The forest was their home, their weapon, and they used it to devastating effect. The once mighty alien scouts were being wiped out, not by superior firepower, but by a force that had mastered the art of survival and warfare in their own environment. It was clear now that the aliens had underestimated Earth, and they were paying the ultimate price for their arrogance.
The remaining alien scouts, battered and decimated, made one final, desperate attempt to escape the forest and reach their ship. They had lost nearly everything. Most of their comrades were dead, and their once advanced weaponry had been rendered nearly useless. Their mission, initially seen as a routine scouting expedition, had devolved into a nightmare. With no options left, they rallied their few remaining soldiers and plotted a direct course toward the landing site. Their goal was simple: get off the planet and survive. But even this final hope was shattered as soon as they set their plan into motion. The humans had anticipated the aliens' movements. They knew the scouts would eventually try to flee and had prepared accordingly. As the aliens approached their ship, hidden traps sprung into action. Arrows, silent and deadly, rained down from the trees, striking several scouts before they even realized what was happening. The survivors tried to run, but their path was blocked by more carefully hidden snares and pitfalls. Those who managed to avoid the traps found themselves surrounded by humans, descending from the trees, their weapons precise and lethal. In this final ambush, the remaining aliens were picked off one by one, their once superior technology and armor offering no protection against the humans' relentless tactics. Panic set in as the alien scouts realized they had no chance of winning. They were no longer soldiers on a mission, they were prey, being systematically hunted. The few that survived the ambush sprinted toward the ship, their fear driving them forward. They no longer cared about the mission, the intelligence they had gathered, or even their fallen comrades. Their only goal was escape. As they rushed into the ship, they slammed the hatch shut and prepared for takeoff, leaving the horrors of the forest behind. But even as they ascended into the sky, they knew that they had failed in every possible way. The survivors, now reduced to a mere handful, fled Earth in silence. Their mission had been a complete disaster. They had arrived with confidence, fully expecting to assess Earth's defenses and prepare for an easy invasion. They had mocked the humans, laughed at their seemingly primitive tactics, and believed that their advanced technology would ensure a quick victory. But they had been wrong, devastatingly wrong. Their advanced weapons, scanners, and armor had proven useless in the dense forest, where the humans had turned the environment into a lethal weapon. Now, as they looked at the planet shrinking behind them, their thoughts were no longer of conquest, but of survival. Fear had replaced the arrogance that had defined their initial landing. The once mocking tone among the scouts had disappeared completely. They had come to Earth expecting to subdue a weak, primitive species, but they left with a newfound respect for the humans. These tree dwellers, whom they had so easily dismissed, had outwitted and outmaneuvered them at every turn. The surviving scouts couldn't shake the image of their fallen comrades, killed by what they had considered primitive tools and tactics. Their advanced technology had been no match for the humans' knowledge of the land and their ability to strike from the shadows. As their ship cleared Earth's atmosphere and entered the safety of space, the surviving alien scouts began to reflect on what had gone wrong. Their reliance on technology had blinded them to the humans' true capabilities. They had underestimated the humans' ability to adapt and use their environment to their advantage. The forest, which they had once seen as a harmless backdrop, had been turned into a deadly battlefield. Every tree, every patch of underbrush had been part of the human strategy, and the aliens had walked right into their traps. The aliens had expected an easy victory, but Earth had proven to be far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Their leaders would need to be warned. The planet, far from being an easy target, was home to a species that knew how to survive in even the harshest conditions. The humans' guerrilla tactics, their mastery of the terrain, and their ability to turn their surroundings into a weapon made Earth a formidable adversary. Any future invasion would need to be reconsidered. This scouting mission had failed, and the price had been high. Back on Earth, the humans watched in silence as the alien ship disappeared into the sky. From the safety of their treetop perches, they observed the retreat with calm detachment. They knew the scouts would return to their leaders with stories of what had happened here, but the humans weren't concerned. They had lived in harmony with the forest for generations, and they would continue to do so. They were prepared to defend their land from any future invaders, just as they had done today. The humans remained hidden, just as they had from the beginning. The forest was their home, their ally, and their greatest weapon. They had learned to survive by blending into their surroundings, using the natural world to their advantage. They had no need for advanced technology or complex weaponry. Nature provided all the tools they needed. They had proven that Earth was not a planet to be underestimated, and they were ready to strike again if necessary. As the days passed and the forest returned to its usual calm, the humans remained vigilant. The aliens had been defeated, but they knew this was only the first wave. More would come, but the humans would be ready. They had shown the invaders the true strength of Earth, and they would do so again if the need arose. The aliens may have left, but the humans would always be here watching, waiting, and prepared to defend their land with every weapon at their disposal. The message had been sent loud and clear: Earth was not an easy target. The humans, once underestimated, had proven their worth. Any future invaders would face the same fate if they dared to challenge the guardians of the forest. The humans had survived, and they would continue to do so, no matter what threats came from the stars.